Here are the top 7 common oral sex mistakes that you and your spouse should avoid. On this video, I'm going to give you oral sex mistakes that most people are prone to do in the bedroom. The first mistake is what I call scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. That means give me some oral and I'll give you some oral too. This applies to that spouse who is very, very selfish, who wants to receive some oral sex all the time, but when it comes to giving, they don't want to return the favor. They want to be the ones receiving all the time, and yet when it comes to them giving their spouse the same, they kinda, I'm not sure whether to call it chicken out or freak out, but for whatever reason, they are not willing to give it as much as they love to receive some oral. What do you do in that case? Well, I'll play tough coach here. If he doesn't give it to you, sis, don't give it to him. Okay? Let me say though that it depends from person to person. Use your discretion. If you are fine with giving and not receiving, hey, do whatever tickles your fancy. The number 2 oral sex mistake to avoid is avoid being sloppy when it comes to giving oral. It can be so disgusting, and let alone it can also be a big turn off. So try by all means not to be sloppy. Minimize the amount of saliva that you produce or use during oral sex. Otherwise, it can turn into a big mess, and you definitely don't want to be a sloppy Joe. I know I did mention it on one of my previous videos, and I remember saying some people are so sloppy. If it's the man being sloppy giving it to you, sis, you'll think that sis just had a big old squirt orgasm. I know that's an exaggeration, but hey, you get my point, right? Avoid using a lot of saliva during oral sex. Yes, I know you need some lubrication, but a little goes a long way. Just produce it as you need it. Okay? Now let's move on to the third mistake to avoid during oral sex. If you are loving these tips so far, go ahead and give me a thumbs up, and remember to subscribe if you haven't done so already. Don't forget to click that notification bell so that YouTube notifies you every single time a new video goes up. And this is similar to the previous one. It mainly applies to the brothers. Avoid forcing your spouse to give you some oral sex. Don't push your spouse's head towards your genitals as a way of soliciting for oral sex. Let your spouse give it to you freely and willingly. This way it can be fun and exciting, and nobody will feel like they are forced to do anything that they are not willing to do at that particular moment. So avoid soliciting for oral sex by guiding your spouse's head towards your genitals. It's not cool at all. And this normally happens with people who are not willing to give oral sex, just like I said on the previous point. Otherwise, I think a smart way to solicit for oral sex will be to give it to your spouse first, and he or she will return the favor. Okay? Let's move on to number 4. Never ignore your spouse's cues or reactions or feedback during oral sex, as this may make or break your session. And this falls under the broad category of communication, which I always talk about. Make sure you pay attention to how your spouse is reacting, the cues, the body language, the verbal cues. Keep checking with them how they are doing. Is this okay? How does this feel? Adjust things accordingly. Adjust things as needed. Okay? This will ensure that you have the best session. And then let's move on to number 5. At number 5, your teeth should not be involved during oral sex. Keep your teeth out of it. In other words, no biting, because we know that we are dealing with very, very sensitive areas here, both for men and women. The sexual organs, the VJJ, what I like to call kitty, and the penis are very, very sensitive. So make sure that you keep your teeth out of it. Okay? Alright, this is number 6. Avoid skipping foreplay. Skipping foreplay is a big mistake. Remember what I've said before, that oral sex is sex. So whenever sex is involved, there is a need to have some kind of foreplay. Okay? Let me know if you need a whole video on foreplay, because at times we may think that people know what foreplay is, and it may turn out that not everybody knows what foreplay is and what is involved in foreplay. Let me know if you want a whole video on foreplay, okay? And then the last point, which is number 7, is avoid being in a big hurry. I talk about an oral sex quickie. Avoid oral sex quickies. They are not fun. If you're going to include oral sex in your session, make sure that you are not in a hurry. Take your time. It's fun to take your time, because remember, you'll need to arouse each other before you get into the actual oral sex. The manhood, that is your man's organ, will need to be hard before you give it the lollipop style. Make sure that you take your time to get it to its hard state instead of a flaccid, rubbery state, okay? Same with you, brothers. Make sure that the sister is aroused, and this way you're going to get the best results, okay? Thought I'll give you these 7 common oral sex mistakes that you may be doing or that your spouse may be doing. Make sure you avoid them, okay? Remember to give this video a thumbs up so that people looking for similar content will find it. So these are the top 7 oral sex mistakes that you and your spouse should avoid.